Well, hello everybody. Once again, we're back in my kitchen. Today we're going to make just a top-notch chili. Absolutely the best chili recipe you're ever going to have. So anyway, the first thing we need to do is we need to start with our vegetables. Get yourself out a nice cutting board and a good sharp knife. You're going to need a good cast iron frying pan, or I prefer a Dutch oven because we're going to make quite a bit of this. And get that set on medium heat. Add a little bit of oil to it, maybe a tablespoon. That's about all you're really going to need. And let it start heating up. And then we'll get our vegetables in there and get them to start sauteing down and get nice and soft. Now the first vegetable we're going to want to start with is a pepper. Nice green pepper. You can use red, yellow, orange. I don't particularly care, but a nice sweet bell pepper. First thing you want to do is cut it in half, and then you'll see in the middle you've got all these seeds and this white pith. You want to get rid of all of that stuff because it's just actually going to taste really, really bitter. Now, make sure your knife is good and sharp, and when you start cutting the pepper, you want to start cutting from the inside. Don't cut from the outside, because this outside layer, although it's not really got actual wax on it, it is kind of waxy. It'll make your knife slip, and you're just going to wind up in the emergency room. So, cut it into quarter-inch strips, as small as you like it. I kind of cut mine a little small because my kids see the peppers and onions in there and they immediately say, oh, I don't know if I want that. So you cut it into nice long strips. Then turn it sideways and dice it. This is a rustic meal, chili. It's kind of like a stew, very rustic. They don't have to be exact. But you want to kind of get them about the same size so that they all cook at about the same time. Get that into your frying pan. You want to start with this first because this is going to take the longest time to soften up. So you want to get the pepper in there first and let it start to soften. The onions will soften down very quick. The garlic, we're going to put in at the last minute because if you have it in there too long, well, it's just going to burn and get, again, bitter. If you have a couple of larger pieces, you can cut them down and make them kind of even with the rest of it. Next, you're going to want one good-sized jalapeno. Again, cut this in half and get rid of all the seeds and the white pith in there. Now, the seeds and the pith contain most of the capsaicin in a jalapeno, which is what provides all the heat to you. However, there's still a fair amount of heat contained, along with an immense amount of flavor, in the actual fruit of the jalapeno itself. To keep people from biting into a large chunk and burning their mouths, I tend to cut these quite a bit smaller than I do my bell pepper. So there we go. We've got our peppers in there. An important factor is you're going to need a good spoon for stirring this up. I like to use a nice wooden spoon. Everybody's got one of these in their their kitchen somewhere. Give them a little stir, get them coated with that oil, and they start to sweat down. Make sure you got your pan going on low to medium heat. Now, an onion. You'd be surprised how many people I've actually seen struggle with peeling an onion. In this case, we're going to dice it, again, about the same size as the bell pepper, 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. Really easy. Cut off either end, gives you a nice flat surface, like such. There you have it, sitting down nice and flat. Cut that in half. Now, all you have to do is peel the outside layer. And there we have a nice, shiny, white, peeled onion. I like to use a nice, sweet onion like a Vidalia, although if you're looking for something a little more pungent, please, go right ahead, be my guest. Now, when it comes to cutting, we're going to give you a couple of tips here. Actually, one tip. And it's the best tip you'll ever get when using an onion. Keep your hand curled like such. If you have it like this, you place your thumb at the back of the onion. You can feed it forward, like such, but with your knuckles curled in like this, you'll never cut your finger. You can also use it as a guide to keep your slices the same size. And when you get down to the end, just flip it over, and again, same technique. Cut, cut, cut. Turn it sideways. Cut it like that. Then you'll have your nice little onion pieces. Again, I cut mine kind of small. If you like yours big and chunky, please, be my guest. But my kids see the onions and the peppers and things, and then they tend to go, "Oh, I'm not eating that." What are you going to do? And there we have one nice diced onion. Let's get it right into the pan. Once again, stir it around a little bit. Get everything coated. Now the onion itself contains a lot of oils. Usually, it's those oils that, when they get into the air, will make you cry as you're cutting onions. I've been doing it so long, I've kind of built up an immunity to it. Or maybe that's from growing up in New Jersey and having drank the public water for so many years. I'm just immune to everything. But anyway, we want to let that simmer down for a few minutes. So while that's all sauteing down there and then just sweating out, and we got to give it a few minutes. Next thing we want to do is we want to get some garlic ready for the pot. Clove of garlic like this. Just put a little pressure on it. Cloves will come right out. Now I'm going to be using 2 fairly decent sized cloves here. Now, they've got a paper coating on them. We're going to want to get rid of that. So some of you may be asking, well, how do I do that? What's the easiest way? They're a pain in the butt to try and just cut a little slice into them and peel them. It's really quite simple. Lay it down, take the side of your knife, put it there, and just give it a good shot. Paper comes right off. And we just chop this garlic up as small as you can get it, because nobody likes eating their meal, enjoying a nice meal, and then all of a sudden they get a big piece of garlic wedged in their teeth. And now, if you're not that comfortable with a knife, and I've been doing it for years, so it doesn't really bother me as much, you can use the backside of a frying pan, just put your hand in there and smash it down, or get out a little Cuisinart. You can pick up those little tiny ones at, at the local store, even at the drugstore, for about $10. Garlic in at the last minute. You'll notice here that our onions have become quite translucent, see-through. Our peppers look kind of soft. They feel soft with the spoon. Throw your garlic in there, let it simmer for a minute, and then we want to get right on to the meat. You don't want that garlic cooking too long because it's going to get bitter. So we need to get something on top of that. Now I'm working with 1.5 pounds of hamburger because that's what most people consider in chili. Although the original chilies were, they used stew meat. You want to think cheap meat when you're doing this. This is a cheap meal, and well, with this economy, we can all relate to cheap. You want to think inexpensive cuts of meat. Good old 70-30 hamburger. And you want to get all of that in there. I'm using about 1.5 pounds. Break it up with your hands ahead of time. You can always go to the sink and wash them. It's easier than trying to break it up with the spoon in there. And start stirring to get that brown. And let it sit a minute, and then we'll stir it again. So here we are. We're browning our meat. It's going to take just a couple of minutes. And then we're going to start working in some liquids. Okay, so now we've got our meat browned barely. It may still have a little bit of pink in there, but what you want to do is you want to break it up to this consistency so there's no actual large chunks, like say meatballs, in there. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to add the liquids. What you want a good quality beer. Now, if you're a Guinness drinker or you're drinking these very thick stouts, don't use those because it's just going to turn bitter when it cooks out. This is a nice Irish red. It's a sweet beer, not made with hops. It's only made with barley malt, so it's actually kind of sweet. Pour the whole thing in there, or almost the whole thing in there. If you want, save a sip for yourself. But there it is. We've got it in there. Now what we're going to do is stir it all through and let it simmer down. Get it up to a simmer and let it reduce, which basically you want it to, evaporate off a bit of the beer. It'll intensify the flavor and thicken your stew. Okay, so in a minute or so, this will all be simmered down. Probably going to take about 5 to 10 minutes, depending upon how high you have your flame. I've got mine less than halfway up.